Alright, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the super plate from Soundtoys. Everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. If you like this guide, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can check the QRs on the screen, or everything is at the description. Now, before we start, you need to know that a plate reverb is not a natural space. If you want to know how fascinating and how a real plate reverb works, check the video at the description. Is a guy showing you how, the real, hardware works, and it's just, mind-blowing. So the super plate, it's not an impulse response player. It's an emulation of different plates. So this means that you have a lot more control because it's, of course, digital. It's an emulation. All right, so let's do some drumming. So right here you have the different plates that you have available. And on the right side you have the input and output, and these ones are really important for this plugin. And right below you have the dry and the wet. Right now it's all the way dry, so we are not processing anything. If I go all the way up, we just get the reverb sound. Now the input and output are really important. Since you input more, you're driving the preamp, and this, emulates that. And, of course, the sound that goes to the reverb is gonna be a little bit more compressed. So if I input more, right here you have the metering. That it gets, really massive. And of course you can control the output if it goes really wild. So this is the first thing you need to check. If you want to input more and drive it harder to the preamps, or the emulation of the preamp, and then just adjust the output. For now, I'm just gonna go back to default. Now, this is one side. Now, then we have the other sides, which is the different types. But before we can talk about that, we have the different three models that we have right here. So going up in input, it means that we drive the preamp harder, so we get more compression. And the three options, again, give you the three different colors. This gives you a coloration. And for now, I'm just going to go all the way down on the decay. And I'm going to go to the first one. Now, this one is the clean one, so there's no coloration. Now, the other ones, this and this one is the solid state. And notice that right from the scratch, it sounds a little bit different. Cleaner, more compressed. And then we have the tube. So this is an emulation of the EMT 54 tube preamp. So we'll, distort a little bit more. Alright, so a lot more compressed. And the other one is a solid state of EMT 162, so it distorts a little bit less. Now all of this is right there in the manual. It's a nice read, so you can, check it out. It's, pretty fun. So I'm gonna drive the input a little bit more and just crush it, right? So I'm crushing it. Remember, I'm still on the clean. What happens if I go to the other ones? Right, so now we can really hear the difference. Now, of course, right now I'm going into the extreme, so I can, really show you how this works. But now you know that driving the input a little bit more is going to give you, a little bit more hot sauce from the different preamp emulations. So since now we know that we can use the input to drive it harder and get the different colors from the preamp emulation, then we have the different plate types. And I'm going to stay right here and clean all the way down on the decay so we can hear how they all sound. Right, so the first one, the classic 140, is an emulation of the EMT 140. It's like the father of all plates, rich and full. And all the other plates are gonna sound really different. So I'm gonna go to the second one. Way different, right? But this is much smaller. It sounds much smaller. But it is. Also, you have less bass and it's less muddy. Now the third one, Audicon, is from the 70s. Notice it's a little bit brighter, has more bite. A lot more bite. So the other ones are, they have a darker sound. This one is just brighter. Now the other one is the echo plate from the 80s. And then notice that this one has a different resonance, a different tone. So from the 80s is, again, brighter than the Audicon. And also it has a different sound. It sounds different on the higher frequencies. And the last one, it's a representation of the RX 4000. And it's super, super bright. And you can see it right here on the spectrum, how it changes. If I go to, again, this one, the spectrum really changes. Now, all of these different sounds, they have the different, the different uses. And right now, I'm doing all the way down on the decay, so. But as you notice, there's a pattern right here. This one is a little bit, fuller, and it's darker as well. But as we go up, it gets narrow, and it's going to get a little bit brighter. So as we can see, now we have two different parts, the input stage, the preamp, and then the different types. And, the combination of what we do with all of them will give you just, different sounds. If I go to a highly crushed, notice that it sounds way different. I go to this one. So this is what you need to do when you open this plugin. You need to decide how hard you're going to be driving it, and then choose the type of plate depending on which tone you want. You want brighter, you want a little bit more darker or fuller. It's completely up to you. Then is the other side, which is the third part of this plugin, which is going to be the decay and all of this section. So as you might know, the decay controls how long it takes for the reverb to go to full silence. Now, I guess you know that, but each reverb is a little bit different. Since this is a plate, is a mechanical type of reverb, and the decay is controlled by a damper. 0.5 is the shortest you can go, and I have a snare right here, so we can hear the decay. Now, as you go up, of course, you're going to be going up on the decay, and you can go up to 4 or 5 seconds, and this is why you have this red part right here. 5 seconds is the, as much as you could go on the real unit. So going up, from 5, it means that you're going to be extending, and this is, of course, the emulation from Soundtoys. You couldn't do this with the real unit, but you're going to be entering on the cave type of decays. If I go to 16, it's going to be a never-ending type of decay. But still, it will fade after a little while. This is how it works. If I go more aggressively, you get that. And of course, all the different plates, they're going to give you a different sound. Even if you're inputting, I'm going to go, maybe back to 0 right here. There is a change in tone. This is why choosing and, going through the input and choosing a different type of reverb, it's super important. It's changing tone, especially when you go up on the decay. Also, going all the way up on this knob or, control or attenuator or whatever you want to call it, it means that you're going to infinity mode. This means that the decay will not fade, right? So if I play it, it's like a freeze for a delay, for example. It's going to stay right there. Until, of course, you move this knob back and the decay will, kick in. But if you go all the way up and again play it again, it will just, never go down. And this is really cool to create, different textures and ambient sounds. But of course, depends on whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe with the snare, right now, if I put, play the drums, this is not going to sound that good, right? All right. So since this plugin was modeled after the EMT140, the decay that we have right here is frequency dependent. It means that this is very reactive to the sound that you're using. So when you put it on drums or a snare or guitars on vocals, you will need to adjust the params and adjust the decay. Alright, so this is how the decay works. Then at the right side, you have different options, and you have the pre-delay. We can talk about this, and then we can talk about this section we have right here. So of course, this is a reverb, and for now, I'm just going to be playing maybe a drum. And notice that we get the decay, and I'm all the way on wet, so the pre-delay, and I'm again pretty sure you know this, is how you're going to be offsetting the reverb. If I go up, notice that the reverb is starting a little while after I play the reverb. One thing you don't see is how much you're doing in milliseconds, but you do have that option. If you'll click right here, it's going to tell you, on the title, on the label, it's going to tell you how much you can go up, and you can go up to 250 milliseconds, which is not a lot, but for a play, it's fine. Now, if you click on the tweak right here, it's going to open up and show you more options. We're going to discuss all of this in a minute, but first we need to discuss the filters. And this section, the tweak, give you kind of a visual representation of this filtering that you have right here. Now, this low and this high are just a high pass and a low pass, and they are pre-reverb. So it means that it will cut the sound before going to the plate. That is really important because if you have some drums, going to be playing the drums, maybe the low frequencies is just, getting, it's just a bit too much. Too much built up. So what you can do, you can go to the filters and chop the low frequencies before going to the reverb. It's just going to be a nicer, more controlled reverb. And again, I'm going all the way wet so we can hear. But if I go to something like this, it's going to sound really cool. Gonna go back, so you can chop the lows all the way up, and again, right here is gonna give you a reference of how much you're cutting all the way to 1K, and then on the other side you can chop the higher frequencies, so you just get the lows. So this is what you can do with the controls that you have right here. But if you go to the tweak menu, you can change right here. Notice it says 6 or 12 or 24. So you can change the slope of the filter. By default it's 12, but you can, make it more aggressive or just, a little bit less aggressive if you wanted to. Now then you have this one that says 1 and 2, and you don't have controls, direct controls here. You need to go to the tweak menu. And you must be thinking, okay, so this is a bell EQ, and yes, it is a bell EQ. And for now, I'm just going to be maybe going no filtering, and I'm going to be playing it. So yeah, we are boosting with a bell EQ. And we have 2, so we can go up on this one. Now, so before you say anything, these ones are the 1 and 2 are post reverb. They are not pre. So what you are doing, you're EQing whatever that comes out, not what comes in. All right, so maybe it's a little bit too harsh because maybe I go to this, or maybe this one. I just can attenuate and then maybe do something like that. Maybe I want to boost. I can. All right, so super cool. Now, holding control and going to the 1 and 2, you can adjust the Q. If I'm holding the control, I'm holding it right now, and I move it or drag it with the mouse, I can adjust the Q. Right. Now, if you want to reset it, you can do it with Alt or Command. I'm gonna do Command and click it, and it's just resetting back to the initial, the default position. Now you have a modulation section and a stereo section. Right here is the control, but you have, extended controls are here on the modulation when you open the tweak menu. And the modulation, it means that, it will introduce pitch modulation, just like you would get on a tape delay, for example. I'm using a guitar right now. Let me just play it. All the way wet, staying on the, the default values. If I go up on the modulation, you can hear that it goes a little bit wider. Now it's like moving, right? So we have a deeper sense of space. Now also notice that below you have the rate control. Right now it's, as fast as you can go. Slow, sorry. But you can go faster. But still, notice that it's very smooth. It's not super intrusive. I know some emulations of different reverbs or maybe delays going all the way up on the modulation, you can hear the pitch, going, up and down, and sometimes it's a little bit sickening, but here it's just, very mild. If I go up on the decay, no modulation. I'm gonna go up. Yeah, that's what it does. So I'm gonna be playing the guitar and then stopping it so we can hear the decay, just the decay without the original source, so we can hear that modulation. Right now it's all the way on 0, and I'm gonna stop it so we have a tail. So that's the decay. Now if I do the same thing, stop it, this is how the modulation sounds. We go all the way down, we get caught the decay. That is that we don't have that, movement in the back. I can go faster, a little bit more. So this is what the modulation does. Now, of course, if it's going to make it, a little bit wider, and it's going to give you, movement in the back. All of this is completely up to you. And for now, I'm just going to go all the way down in modulation because you have a stereo section. And it means that you have a width control. You can go all the way to stereo, right, by default. But you could just, go all the way down and make it, narrow. Not only that, you have the balance. You can go to the right or left in this case, or you can go and move it to the right. If I go down on the dry and the wet, notice that the guitar stays centered. So this is going to pan, the processed signal, of course. Right? So completely different. Alright. Okay, so the last thing we need to cover is the auto decay. Now, as you can see, again, this plugin has different parts. The input section, the different types, all of the filtering and the decaying. But again, the auto decay is just, an added thing that you have right here. So this works like a compressor. It will detect, or, if you go over the threshold, it will dampen, or it's gonna duck the decay. So let's do some drumming. All right. So notice that it's listening to whatever input that is going to the unit, and right here it's telling you the threshold. So what you need to do, you need to go and move this. All the way up is off, but maybe I want to dampen or maybe duck the decay when the snare and the kick hits. And notice it's doing it. Right now we are maybe on, I'm gonna put it at 4. So every time that it's, getting the snare or the kick in this case, is going to duck the decay. There's a turning this off, does nothing because it's not part. We go up, we get that. So this is the first part. Now notice that it's super fast. So then you have the recovery. So this is like the release if you, we go to compressor land. So right now it's the middle. If I go all the way fast, it's gonna be super fast. If I go really slow, now we can really hear when it's ducking the reverb, or the decay in this case. Now, then you have the target. So the target is how much you're going to be ducking the decay. Since it's on all the way down, it means that from whatever you are, it's going to duck all the way from here all the way to the first position. So you're, ducking all the way down. And it's because this target is all the way down. As we move up, maybe go to 3 or 2 in this case, it means that it will duck until, 2. Now, of course, if you go over and you go over this control, this decay, the time, it will not duck anything. But this is how it sounds without ducking. If I go down, this just sounds a little bit more cleaner. Alright. And it's a nice feature because right now, maybe I like this, 8 seconds. I find it, really cool, but maybe it's just a little bit too much. So by using the duck, it sounds a little bit more controlled. Alright, it's a lot of buildup. Now, of course, I'm going really aggressively right here so we can hear it. Alright. So I'm going to be boosting a little bit of the higher frequency so we can really hear this. I'm going to be, again, playing it again. And I'm going to be going a little bit more aggressive on this one, on the threshold. And as it starts to clean up. So really cool, nice added feature. Alright, so a little bit too much. Fits a little bit more. Right. Okay, so hopefully you learned how this works and, now you know how to use it. And if you liked all of this, please like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can go to the links at the description. You have links for PayPal, you have Patreon, and you have YouTube thanks. And of course, you have the QR on the screen. All right, so see you on the next one.